Hey everyone, Matt Denham back again with another quick demo highlighting the conditional formatting capability that we added in Cognos Analytics 11.1.7. As more and more customers have upgraded to 11.1.7, we're starting to see more and more inquiries or questions about setting up conditional formatting in the table and crosstab because it's a lot more flexible and powerful in this latest version. So I really see there are 4 different use cases. That's what I'm going to be tackling in the demo. So use case 1 might be a very simple, I've got a threshold, did I hit this target or did I not hit this target? It's sort of a static value or set of values that I want to compare. Use case 2 is more of a comparison where the field that you're looking to highlight is a percentage and you want to calculate a percentage value that's higher or lower than what you've achieved. Use case 3 actually takes that a little bit further and simplifies use case 2 a little bit because you have the ability to compare 2 different values and the attainment or variance between those 2 fields and use a threshold that way. And finally, the last use case, possibly the simplest, is I have 2 values I want to do. Is this one higher than this one? Is this one lower than this one? Etc. So let's take a look at those 4 use cases in this quick demo. All right, let's start with use case 1. In this case, I've got a measure that I'm looking to evaluate. In this case, it's revenue. And I want to set some numeric targets to define or highlight areas that we are doing well in and areas that we need improvement upon. So I'm going to go into my properties panel and I can see revenue here under conditional color. If I had more measures in my crosstab, those would all appear and I could just select the one that I wanted to define rules for. But in this case, I've only got revenue, so I'm going to jump into revenue. I'm going to keep the default scale as numeric because those are the hard targets that I'm looking to set. And let's look to build out some more stoplight level thresholds here. So I'm going to say if it's greater than or equal to, let's say this is 15 million. I want this to be green with an up arrow. I'm good with that. I'm going to create another rule that if it is, let's go with less than or equal to 2 million. I want this to be more of an amber and maybe no shape for those highlights. And then the last one, I'm going to do another simple rule that if it's less than 1 million, I want this to be red. And well, let's go less than or equal to. And here I want to give more weight to this value so I can actually readjust where this lives. I'm going to drag and drop. So now I've got my 3 stoplight rules where I can highlight whether or not we're doing well or not based on a numeric threshold that I've defined. All right, now let's look at use case 2. Use case 2, I've got an example here where I've got my revenue field, I've got a planned or target revenue field, and then I've got a field coming from my data source that looks at attainment and how we did achieving our targets across our various products. So that's what I'm going to use. I want to color this attainment field, which is already a percentage. So I'm going to hop into my properties again. See, now I can see, because I've got multiple measures in my crosstab, I pick the revenue attainment column because that's what I want to color. Now, I've created a dummy calculation here. It's very important that because if I was comparing it to itself as a percentage scale, it would always hit 100% of whatever it is. The value is 100% of itself. So we need to compare it against a dummy calculation. So that's what I've done here. I've got a dummy calc. This literally just has 1. So I'm just comparing it to 1. Now I'm going to define the rules that way. So here I'm going to say if it's greater than or equal to 1.17, highlight that in green. And likewise, if it is, say, less than 1.16, I want that to be red. And let's make the indicator a negative. So very simple. But if we're looking to evaluate a percentage field using percentage scaling, this is how you would set that up. You just have to color it by this dummy calculation that you would create. Now let's look at use case 3. So for use case 3, I've got a very simplistic example that I'm looking to compare revenue to planned revenue. Did I achieve any thresholds comparing revenue to plan? I want to color the revenue field, and I'm going to look to compare it to planned revenue. Here, I don't even need to have planned revenue in the crosstab. I'm just keeping it there for illustration. But now I want to do a percentage calculation of revenue against plan using a set of rules. So I'm going to say if it is, let's say, greater than or equal to 117%, I want that to be green and up. But if it's less than 116%, I want that to be red and down. This is just I'd say use case 2 and use case 3 are very similar. One is using a percentage column that's perhaps coming from your data source, and that's what you want to highlight. In this case, I just want to highlight the revenue field compared against attainment of a target. All right, and the fourth and final use case is also fairly simplistic here, where I'm just looking to compare the numeric difference between quantity sold and target sales. So we have our actuals, we have our budget. Is one greater than the other? How would we define our rules to account for that scenario? Well, again, this is something that I'm going to do with a calculation. So I've created a benchmark calculation here. So let me just edit that calculation, show what it looks like. Very simple. When quantity sold is greater than target, then it's 1. When it's less than target, it's 0. So it's just kind of defining a binary threshold for me. Now, I'm going to color again that quantity sold, but I'm going to compare it to the benchmark. And I'm going to use a numeric scale. So it's very simple. My rule is if it's greater than or equal to 1, I want it to be green. And likewise, if I want this to be less than or equal to 0, we're going to make that red. And X that out. So it's a case of these two did not exceed target. The rest either hit or achieved or exceeded target. They're green. Very simple. 4 simple use cases here. As always, if there's anything that you'd like to see in terms of demonstration, always happy to build something out. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, everyone.